All right, good evening, everybody. If you can just let me know if you can hear me okay before I get started. All right, thank you, Brian, Linda. Glad you could be here. If you are joining us for the first time, welcome. You'll see a chat box somewhere on your screen. Feel free to say hello, introduce yourself, let us know where you are, whatever you'd like. It's good evening, Roberto. Glad you could join us. Such a crazy, hectic time right now. And I think it's so critical right now that you all remind yourself to do this practice every day. And whatever that means to you, whether it's a meditation practice, whether it's doing your mindful walk, awareness of the teachings. I say the word practice loosely because people practice in different ways. But I think it's really important right now. I think it's important always, but for various reasons, I feel that there's definitely a heaviness that is settling into people right now. They're exhausted, they're worn out, they're tired of pandemic. They've lost loved ones, they've lost friends, they're fighting for their lives, they've lost jobs. And that's just before the recent global events that has everybody very, for good reason, emotionally wrapped up in what's happening around the world. And so what ends up happening is a lot of the everyday simple things can trigger us much quicker if we're not careful. So remember to bring this practice into your life every day. And there are so many things going around, or going on around us, I should say, that we don't immediately or directly seem to have too much control over. But there are things very directly in our lives, very present in our lives, that we do have control over. So try to focus on those things right now. And make sure you show up. Show up for your family and friends that need you. Show up for yourself, first and foremost, I should say. Show up for colleagues and classmates and partners. Just show up. Show up and work on continuing to be the kindest, gentlest person that you can. And try to do that without too much critique or judgment of yourself. But just make sure, again, if some of you may be joining us for the first time, welcome. But especially for those who've been at this or around it or sat with me for a while, when I say make sure you practice every day, I know you know what I mean. So I hope you know what I mean. If you don't, let me know. Again, if you are joining for the first time, welcome. You'll see a chat box here on the screen somewhere. Feel free to chime in and say hello, introduce yourself. And we'll go ahead and get started with the meditation practice. For those who are maybe joining us for the first time, welcome. And there's a couple things to tell you before we begin. Nothing's going to happen to you. You're not going to float away. You won't have any mystical, magical experiences. You won't figure anything out. The mind that races all day long is not going to shut off. Don't judge your practice, meaning don't ask yourself, is this working or not working? Am I doing it right? Am I doing it wrong? We're just going to sit. We're going to breathe. You'll hear sounds inside, sounds outside. This is life. Life is filled with chaos, as we know too well. And this practice is learning to get quiet and still within all the chaos. So phones ring, dogs bark, babies cry. These are just things that happen. I'm sitting here in an empty temple, so it's probably going to be relatively quiet in here, but there are sounds outside, and who knows what could happen. So posture, you just want to be comfortable. If you're on a cushion, it helps slide into the front third, pushing the stomach forward. Allows the back to straighten. Shoulders are relaxed. Hands can be on the knees or in the lap, whatever is comfortable. I will guide us as we begin, and we'll settle into a little bit of silence. Most important with this practice is don't expect anything. We're just going to sit and breathe. And starting with the eyes closed, if comfortable, or slightly open. Mouth is open or closed. We'll start with taking 3 deep breaths, slowly. And eventually, you settle into a natural rhythm of the breath. Noticing the mind as it wanders, jumping from thought to thought. Start with gently guiding your attention, focus to the stomach or the chest. Breathing in, feel them rise. Breathing out, they fall. Simply continue this practice, observing sensation of breath, expecting nothing but to sit and breathe. And as the mind wanders, lost in thought, recognize it, release that thought, return attention, focus to the breath. Where's your mind? Return to breath. Letting go of expectations. Letting go of judgment from the practice. Just sitting, breathing. keeping the mind alert, aware of each sound, each thought, each physical sensation, yet concerned with nothing but sitting, breathing. Breathing in, follow breath in, breathing out, follow breath out. And with the body still, rested, and the speech quiet, aware of all sound, and the mind learning to settle, knowing what it's like to just sit and breathe, knowing with each breath there's nothing else to do, nowhere else to go, no one else to be. Everything beautiful, exactly as it is. Sitting, breathing. And once again, taking 3 deep breaths, slowly. And as you slowly open the eyes, slowly beginning to move, and most important, with the practice of meditation, is to recognize how you feel now, immediately after. Compare this to how you typically feel throughout your day. Recognize the difference, if there is one. Ask yourselves how you prefer to feel every day for the rest of your life. And realize however you feel now, if it's quiet, calm, and still, or a busy mind, racing mind, whatever you're sitting with at this moment, has nothing to do with anything I said. It's nothing to do with how we sit and hold the hands or cross the legs. It's nothing to do with the sounds around us or anything else for that matter. It's everything to do with your own mind and your own mind's reaction to an external condition. This is what the Buddha called pratitya samuppada, means dependent origination. This is the basis of the Buddha's awakening. The word Buddha simply means awakened. He was a human being, no different than any one of us, who began to understand why he suffered, why he got angry, sad, depressed, stressed, anxious. He began to understand the causal relationship of all phenomena. And what that means, very simply, for all of us, regardless of where you come from or what you believe in or where you think you're going, your whole life is filled with things that happen. You react. More stuff happens, more reactions. That's it. This practice is learning what it's like to respond to something quietly, peacefully, still. For most of us, the way you responded to the last 20 minutes is quite different from how you respond to everything else that's happening throughout your day. So all we're working on is closing the gap to the way you feel now is closer to how you feel always. Just as driven, motivated, productive, successful, whatever that means to you in your respective lives. But with a mind that's steady, clear, focused, distracted by nothing, disturbed by no one. This practice is not easy, not necessarily fun, but it's free. Meditation is free, Buddhist practice is free. Sitting, breathing, becoming aware of what you think, say, and do. Learning to be kind to yourself and everybody else you encounter every moment of your life. And that's it. Once we stop trying to change, fix, control, manipulate everything and everyone around us, and we work on changing our mind and our reaction to the world around us, life gets simpler. But as I talked about at the beginning of this evening, it is a practice. And it's something that requires great effort, great discipline, tremendous focus. And it's not easy. But the side effects, as I like to refer to them as, are quite nice. So with that, I'll pause. As always, I really just prefer to respond to your questions. Again, if you are joining us for the first time, welcome. You'll see a chat box somewhere on your screen. Feel free to say hello or share your questions, thoughts, and I'll use the rest of our brief time this evening and just respond to your questions. Anything around meditation, Buddhist practice, anything you're sitting with, and we'll go from there. Oh, and if you didn't hear the news and you don't stick around to the end, the plan as of now is March 12th, which is a Saturday, temple and Buddha for You will be opening once again. So it'll start with that Saturday morning, which will require an RSVP. The information's on the website. So 2 weeks from tonight, Tuesday, we'll be here as well. So I'll do one more virtual, and then we'll be back here and open, which will be nice. We'll continue to stream it live, just like we are now for those that aren't local or still prefer to stay home. But we will be open again. So very happy to share that in case you missed it. Thoughts, questions, anything you're sitting with? Nothing, huh? Pretty quiet tonight. What do you got? Making it easy on me. All right. Brian, good evening. Um, is it necessary or helpful to switch up your meditation practice? I tend to do the same routine and rather enjoy it. Um, Good question. And I think to break down the first part, is it necessary or helpful? Uh, Necessary, I don't think that, well, let me use those two words. Uh, the end of your question said you enjoy the routine you have now. And if it's helpful and you notice that it's having an impact, an effect, a change in your life, then um, definitely not necessary uh, to switch up your meditation practice. I think that, if 1,000 people lead you in meditation, they'll lead you 1,000 different ways. And it's not so much that one is better or worse or right or wrong. There are different ways to do a meditation. And if you find a practice of meditation that works for you and it's pleasant and you're committing to it, then I'm a big fan of that old expression, if it ain't broke, don't fix it. So, not necessary to change it. Uh, a lot of Buddhist teachers will tell you that it's actually more beneficial to find one practice and stick with that. Now, I'm a fan of that if that works for you. But I also don't necessarily see the harm in uh, having different types of meditation practices that you do. I think the average person that we're dealing with here, meditation is something you're doing it maybe once or twice a day, maybe 5 minutes, maybe 20 minutes. This isn't something that you're doing 8 to 10 hours a day, 7 days a week. If that's the case, if this really is, if you're living in a monastery environment and, you have your master, you have your teacher, and your entire life is devoted to this Buddhist meditation practice, then I think for me personally, that's where that idea of having one practice and sticking with it comes from. Um, but that's probably not 99.9% of us. So with that being said, I think it's see what works for you. Hopefully that's helpful. And I also think for people who are newer to meditation practice, definitely trying different types of practices is important. But if the case is that you've settled into one and, like I said, you're enjoying it and it's a routine, then leave it alone. Does that help, Brian? Hopefully. Other questions? Meditation, Buddhist practice. I will add also that I think it's important, regardless of whether you have one practice that you stick with it or you try different ones, to uh, not just for you, Brian, but for everyone really, to not try to get too wrapped up in the, is it working type of mindset or the judgment of it, but just know that if you're taking time each day to sit quietly and breathe, it's probably not making things worse. So try to just remove the critique and judgment of it. It's not, we're just so conditioned to, you sit down for lunch and you have a meal at a restaurant, and then there's this sharing of if you liked it or didn't like it. You're thinking about what food you want to order. You order the food, it arrives, you're looking at it, you're judging it, critiquing it, you're eating it. You're trying to decide if you like it or not. Is it good? Is it prepared the same way? And then after that, you tell everybody about it. Nowadays, you take a picture of it and put it all over social media, but that's a whole another story. Um, Try not to do meditation practice that way. Just experience it as it is, um, and not get too wrapped up in the sharing of it, and or the judgment or critique of it. What are the Paramitas and whom did they originate from? So the Paramitas, the word loosely translates to perfection, and there are 6 of them. I'll touch on these first and then give a little bit of the history about it. But the 6 Paramitas, and I know you've heard me talk about, for me, this is my first master, Venerable Yijur. This was what she taught constantly. And so it really became embedded in my mind and in my heart as the practice. And the 6 paramitas, or 6 perfections, are generosity, morality, patience, diligence, concentration, and wisdom. Generosity, morality, patience, diligence, concentration, and wisdom. And that's it. These are words that we all can relate to. potentially understand. And they're incredibly difficult to be mindful and aware of them all day long. Right? To spend your whole day asking yourself, how generous am I? How are my moral values? How patient am I? How diligent am I? How well do I concentrate and focus? And where's my level of wisdom? Or for that one, I just prefer to look at where's my level of ignorance? The Buddha taught that we overcome ignorance with the practice of wisdom. So instead of trying to figure out what is ultimate wisdom, I always look at how am I ignoring the true nature of reality. The Paramitas themselves, they are very specific to what's called the Bodhisattva Practice. Bodhisattva means enlightened beings. And within Buddhism, you have today 3 major schools of Buddhism. And without turning this into a whole history lesson, the initial early teachings of the Buddha, 2,500 years ago, and the first few hundred years, 300, 400, 500 years, as it traveled south out of India and went into Thailand, Laos, Cambodia, Vietnam, you have the what is known as the Theravada school of Buddhism. Theravada literally means of the elders. And so this is comprised of what's called the Pali Canon, which is the original sutras, the teachings of the Buddha, the sastras, which are the commentaries, and the Vinaya, which is the code of conduct, known as the Tripitaka, the 3 baskets. Sutras, sastras, and Vinaya. The teachings, the commentaries, and the code of conduct. So this is the Pali Canon. This is the Theravada school of Buddhism. Around the turn of the century, Buddhist teachings go north, China, Japan, Korea. You have the development of what's called Mahayana Buddhism. Mahayana Buddhism is where the Bodhisattva practice comes from. The Zen practice is very prevalent, specific to Mahayana Buddhism. And there's a body of sutras, Buddhist sutras, known as the Prajnaparamita sutras. Prajna is wisdom, paramita is perfection. So these are known as the Perfection of Wisdom Sutras. In the Perfection of Wisdom Sutras, you have the teachings of the Bodhisattva path. The Bodhisattva path and the Bodhisattva vow is that you vow to be reborn, life after life, to liberate all sentient beings from suffering. So without getting too far into that direction, the Theravada practice is I am going to focus on awakening and enlightenment for me, because I'm unable to truly help someone else unless I am fully awakened. The Mahayana path, and this is, for me, I love the Thich Nhat Hanh teachings of engaged Buddhism. Mahayana Buddhism, the Bodhisattva practice, is about engaging into the world and saying that, yes, I am definitely not a fully enlightened, awakened being, but during this phase and stage, I'm still going to work to help others. And when I die, I vow to return to continue to share Buddhist teachings. So the Paramitas, very specifically to this Bodhisattva path, they are the, as I think I said earlier, the 6 Paramitas. It is the practice of the Bodhisattva. And they say that these Paramitas are what take you from one side of the shore, which is suffering, to the other side of the shore, which is liberation, freedom from suffering. But when you use a raft in the metaphor, and the Paramitas are the raft that gets you from one side to the other, when you get to the other side, you then turn around and you go back. Right? It's like the old Hermann Hesse book, Siddhartha, the ferryman. Right? A lot of people think, and it's probably been 25 years since I've read that book, but a lot of people think that Siddhartha is the Buddha in the book, but it's the ferryman that is driving, bringing people from one side to the other. The third school of Buddhism is Tibetan Buddhism, or Vajrayana, that it really, about 1,000 years after the Buddha died, Buddhism went into Tibet, and you have the development of Vajrayana Buddhism, which is also considered a part of Mahayana Buddhism as a whole. So you have these three words, Hinayana, which is Theravada. Yana means vehicle. If I drew this out, it would make more sense, but Yana, Y-A-N-A. Hinayana, Mahayana, Vajrayana. Hinayana was what they called the old school teachings of the Buddha. It was called, Hina was lesser, vehicle. Yana is vehicle. Then Mahayana comes around 500 years later, and they changed the name from Hinayana to Theravada because it didn't make much sense in Buddhism to refer to one school as greater or lesser than the other. So Hinayana is more commonly referred to as Theravada than Mahayana, and then in Tibet, Vajrayana. Vajra is diamond. So then you have the diamond vehicle. Lesser vehicle, greater vehicle, diamond vehicle. All beautiful. Buddhists are not going to war over which yana is better. For me, that's the beauty of the Dharma Bum Temple, is we're not attached to which yana. Just find one and get on board, because whatever we're doing now isn't working. So hopefully that answers your question. Just make sure there wasn't anything else I wanted to share on that. Yeah. Exactly. Thinking good thoughts, speaking good words, and doing good deeds are already hard enough. And that's exactly my point. So, saying, my first teacher, Venerable Yizhur, the expression, think good thoughts, speak good words, do good deeds, that is the Bodhisattva practice. Put differently, that is minding our karma. Karma is generated three ways: body, speech, mind, what we think, what we say, and what we do. So if we think good thoughts, we speak good deeds, we do good deeds, good actions, that's our karma. That is the Bodhisattva practice in life. And yes, it is hard enough. All right. Jason, welcome. I'm new to my practice. I have a few books: Be Here Now, Tai Daochi, Be Free Where You Are, the Book of the Dead, Tibetan Book of the Dead. But would love some suggestions on others to read and get started. The Be Here Now, is that the Ram Dass one, I believe? I'm not sure if by Daochi, if you mean the Tao Te Ching, which is a beautiful text. It's Taoist, it's not Buddhist, which doesn't make it bad. It's phenomenal. But it's not going to give you an overview of Buddhist teachings. Free Where You Are, I'm not sure. Maybe that's a Thich Nhat Hanh one. And Tibetan Book of the Dead, a lot of different versions of that. Those are also wonderful. But I wouldn't specifically say any of those are great introduction to Buddhism books. Not that they're bad, they're all phenomenal. But I think that there's a great text, Lotus in the Stream, which to me has always been the best intro to Buddhism book out there. It's all the core fundamental teachings of Buddhism. Four Noble Truths, Eightfold Path, Six Paramitas, Karma, Rebirth, Dependent Origination, all of those summed up each in about 10 pages a chapter, translated by Tom Graham, just a middle America dude who really understood Buddhist teachings and was able to make them, I think, easy for us to understand. There's another book, Intro to Buddhism by the Dalai Lama, which is wonderful. So I think those are good for just general overviews of Intro to Buddhism. Temple website, I think it's still up there. I know we were editing it not that long ago, but there was also a resource list up there of some good books to start with, so you could check that. So hopefully that's helpful. And I think in general, when you start reading and you're new to Buddhism, it's really overwhelming and confusing. And even in your examples, you've listed 4 really drastically different texts, but there was one Buddha. He said the same thing for 45 years before he died, as they say, 80,000 ways. And then here we are now, 2,500 years later, and we're looking at all these translations by all these great teachers and scholars and masters and all that, and it can be overwhelming. So I don't necessarily think it's about reading 15 Buddhist books. Find a couple, 2, 3, 4, 5, and really just focus on those for a couple years. So Buddhist practice is not about how much knowledge you can have or how many, Buddhist things you can memorize. And I think I know I was guilty of that when I started. This is back in 2003, but I remember I couldn't wait to have the Four Noble Truths memorized or have the Eightfold Path memorized. And then the ego kicks in, and I couldn't wait to ask a question. But my question wasn't even a question. I just wanted to speak so I could show off that I knew the Four Noble Truths or the Eightfold Path. And it was really funny to watch myself in that phase of massive ego, come into Buddhism, learn the Four Noble Truths, the Eightfold Path by memory, and then use the ego to show that you have them memorized. It's like I've learned absolutely nothing. So important was not the memorization of them or the amount of intellectual book knowledge, but the actual integration of these teachings into your life. That's most important. So for me as a Zen practitioner, Zen Mind, Beginner Mind is always my kind of go-to greatest text out there. Again, very specific to Zen practice, by Suzuki Roshi, Shunryu Suzuki. And that's a book you can read it once and spend the rest of your life just practicing it, because it's incredibly difficult. So you're really looking at the quality and deep understanding of these teachings, not just the amount of knowledge. So, but welcome, Jason. I'm glad you're here, and hopefully I would imagine the practice, even just a little bit, has probably helped you, and anything we can do to continue that, that's why we're here. So, all right, Jason, you're welcome. Thank you. Any final question before we wrap up here? Do one more if anybody wants to ask anything. Are you local, Jason? Are you in San Diego, or are you far away? One of our millions of YouTube followers. And if you are local, then we look forward to meeting you soon. Anything else before I close? All right, so we'll go ahead and we'll join palms. We'll do a transfer of merit. May any merit gained from this practice be transferred to all beings in all directions. May all beings be at peace. May all be free from suffering. May the merit be transferred to more than 5.5 million people who have lost their lives during this pandemic, to their family and friends who still suffer at this time, to my friend David during his loss, and his buddy Eric during his time of rebirth. May they all be at peace. May we all be at peace and free from suffering. All right, just a few announcements before you head off here. Again, thanks for being here. My name is Jeff. I'm a Dharma bum. We opened up this temple 15 years ago to introduce Buddhist practice to those who show up. Those of us who lead, we're not monks, we're not nuns, we're not gurus, we're not masters, we're not teachers, we're not students. We're just practitioners. That's it. We do our best to take our ignorant, unenlightened view of Buddhist teachings and share them with people who show up. Just because we sit up here looking out at everybody sharing these teachings doesn't mean that we have any greater understanding of anything than anybody else. So please keep that in mind. Every night we have different practices going on, different people leading from different traditions, as I said earlier, different yanas. We have a recovery sangha, anyone battling addiction, drugs, alcohol, life, whatever it may be. We have a family group, a college group, a kids group, so always something happening. Sundays we do a knit and sit homeless hats project, so we make beanies and then pass them out to people on the streets. It's a Tonglen practice Sunday nights. It's a beautiful Tibetan practice. And Monday through Friday we sit every morning 8 and 8:30. So during the pandemic we shut down completely for 16 months, went 100% virtual. We opened up in July for 6 months, and then we closed again in January. And so, as I said earlier, we look forward to opening March 12th. Please bear with us as we continue to update the schedules accordingly, just going one day at a time. But just know that Saturday, March 12th, we will open at 11. I'll do the intro to Buddhism and meditation. You do have to RSVP for that. Saturday classes, once we open, will require RSVP. As will the Tuesday night recovery sangha will require RSVPs. Other than that, just show up for the class. That week, our morning meditation will start. So that'll be the 14th, Monday morning, 8 and 8:30. Just show up. We're going to do the same thing as we did before for a little while, where we'll do our morning sit, 8 and 8:30. Temple will close, and then it'll open again in the evening for classes on the nights that we have class. Buddha for You, same thing. It's been shut down unless you're shopping, if you need anything on the website, or you can go there, but that'll open up on the 12th as well. So thanks for sitting. Thanks for practicing. And we'll see you all soon. Oh, and Jason, hello to Orange County. And we hope to see you here soon. Good night, all.